that's right, you ain't going to be here. All right, here we go. Lesson 19, multiplying polynomials. Now, you have done this stuff before. You've heard of the FOIL method, first, outside, inside, last. This is nothing new, but I'm going to walk through this so that you can see exactly what you need to do. Now, when we're going through and using FOIL, first means that we're going to multiply the first things together. So in this case, that's going to be the a's. When I multiply the a's together, what do I get? Well, what's a times a? A squared. So it'll be a squared. Now the next thing is going to be the outside ones. Well, the outside ones, a and negative 5. So if I multiply a and negative 5 together, I end up with negative 5a. So I write down minus 5a. Next one, I'm going to have to deal with the inside ones. Now the inside terms are going to be 8 and a. So what is 8 times a? 8a, but it's going to be a positive 8a, so we are going to put plus 8a. Next thing, if I need to do the last ones in each parenthesis, so it'll be 8 times negative 5. And 8 times negative 5 is going to be negative 40. Now, there's always going to be one more step that you need to take care of, and that is going to be adding like terms. So I've got terms right here and right here that are the same. They're both just a's. So this is going to be a squared plus 3a minus 40. That's it. All it is. Okay. Questions on it? Take a look at this one. Now, I got to multiply a binomial by a trinomial. It really doesn't matter on this one either. If I come at this from the, whoops, hold a sec. Oh, darn, I missed that one. Oh, that's easy enough. I can do that, can't I? What's that times that? 6x what? Squared. Then I've got this. What kind of a 4x? Would it just be plus 4x? Here, minus 9x, and there, minus 6. So when I add like terms together, I end up with 6x squared minus 5x minus 6. Now, what I was going to say when I was looking at the other example is basically everything that's in the first parenthesis gets multiplied by everything in the second parenthesis. So this 2x got multiplied by each one of these things. The negative 3 got multiplied by each one of those things. So if we follow that pattern through, when I'm here, what I would end up doing is taking a, multiplying it by that. So what am I going to get there? Well, that'll be 3a to what power? Third. So it's a squared and 1a there. I am going to take a and multiply it by the next term. So that's going to be minus 2a squared. I am going to take a and multiply it by the last term. So I end up with plus 7a. Now, I've got a 5 there. That 5 is going to get multiplied by each term. So 5 times this. That's going to be plus 15a squared. 5 times this one. Minus 10. Minus 10a. I'd like to tell it to do sometimes. First thing it's done there. So, here we go. Now we got it going again. So, the last one, it's going to be this multiplied by 7. So, I'm going to end up with plus 35. Now, again, I am going to have to go through and add like terms. Now, when I look at this, I got 3a cubed. There's only one of those, so it's just going to be 3a cubed. I have an a squared here and an a squared over here, so that's going to be plus 13a squared. I've got 7a here minus 10a over here, so that's going to be minus 3a and plus 35. So when we're doing this, we are going to have to always make sure that we go through and add. So what happens if you got to multiply 3 of them together? Well, I got a question for you. If I go and take 2 times 3 times 4, what order do I multiply that in? So if I take 2 times 3 and then multiply it by 4, do I get a different answer than if I take 3 times 4 and multiply it by 2? The order of multiplication doesn't matter. So the order of multiplying these together will not matter either. So if I've got r plus 3 times r minus 2 times r plus 5, generally what people do is you multiply the first ones together, so that's going to be r squared minus 2r plus 3r minus 6, and then we just bring, probably because I should have written r, not an x, sorry, bad habits. Now, we still just have the r plus 5 over here. And again, it really doesn't matter which order we do this with. I could take every single one of these and multiply it here. I probably would like to add like terms first, so that I end up with r squared plus r minus 6 multiplied by r plus 5. It doesn't matter, again, what order we want to go in. I can take the r, multiply it here, and I end up with r cubed. R times here plus r squared. R times this minus 6r. I can take the 5, multiply over here, plus 5r squared. Multiply here, plus 5r. Multiply over here, minus 30. Again, I'm going to have to add like terms, so it's going to leave me with r cubed, squared here and squared there, plus 6r squared, minus r here, plus r here, so that's minus 1r, minus 30. I know it looks like a lot of work to go through and do it, and it can be, but it's quick and easy. It doesn't really, like I said, doesn't matter which way I go. If I want to, it's quick. If you know where the shortcuts are, this can be extremely quick. Those you have to see as you're doing. If you don't see them, it doesn't make any sense for me to show them to you. So I could go through and multiply the last two together and just leave the r plus 3 alone. So I would be left here with r squared plus 5r minus 2r minus 10. Now, yes, sir. I did it again, didn't I? Yep. Like I said, force of habit. Used to dealing with x's all the time. So then I would be left with r plus 3, r squared plus 3r minus 10. Now, last one. So I got to multiply everything through again. So I end up with r cubed plus 3r squared minus 10r plus 3r squared plus 9r minus 30. Now, if you have to draw the lines in so that you know which ones you're connecting and which ones you're multiplying, do so. If you don't, you use a shortcut I just used. So, r cubed. I need a squared here, plus 6r squared. I have minus 10 here, plus 9 here, so that's minus r minus 30. Now, if I've done everything correctly, these two answers should be exactly the same, and they are. So again, it does not matter the order in which you multiply. They are going to be the same answers, whichever way you choose to do it. Okay? Questions? No, I didn't. What I did here is I multiplied these two together first and then multiplied by r plus 5. Here I took the r minus 2 and r plus 5, multiplied them together first, and got r plus 3 out on the outside. You'll get the exact same answer. It won't matter which way you go. Got written down what you need? So, I'm going to give you a few moments, and I want you to make sure that you have this into your little notes. Okay. Now, these are the shortcuts. So you don't have to write things out, you have to go and work through them. It's a lot easier having these things to work with than to manually write out everything. So, let's take a look at applying ones. So if I look at the first one here, this pattern fits the sum of squares. Okay? Oops, minus, sorry. Difference of squares. So that means it's always going to multiply out in this fashion. We are always going to have 4y squared. We are always going to have plus 25. Now it's in the center. What's going to be in the center? Well, it's going to be a negative. And you're going to multiply 2 times a times b. So it's going to be this times that multiplied by 2. What's 2 times 5? And multiply it by 2, 20. So this is going to be minus 20y plus 25. Now, if you wanted to write it out and see if that is actually the truth, you get 2y minus 5 multiplied by 2y minus 5. Remember, the squared up here means that it's 2 of them. Well, 2y times 2y gives me 4y squared. 2y times minus 5 gives me a negative 10. When I multiply in here, that gives me another negative 10 plus 25. So, by having these little shortcuts makes life a lot easier. Now, this one over here, I got 5x plus 2y, 5x minus 2y. Difference of squares. This one's even quicker yet. All we have to do is square the first term, square the second term, put a minus sign in between. So for this one, this is going to be 25x squared minus 4y squared. That's it. Last one down here was c. Squared again, but it's plus. So it's going to fit the square of a sum. So that's just going to be 9q squared plus 4r squared. Plus on the inside, it's going to be 3q plus times 2r times 2. So I got 3 times 2 times 2, so I end up with 12 QR. That's it. Now you wanted shortcuts, there they are. Questions on those? So then, I'm going to give you a minute or so here, and I want you to go through and do this one. Okay, Noah, so what do you got as your answer? Okay, so let's check and make sure that he's got this right. So we got 4x plus 5 multiplied by 3x minus 2. So, again, FOIL meaning the firsts. So we're going to take the first in each parenthesis. 4x times 3x. Well, that's going to give us 12, but I have an x here and an x here, so it's got to be an x squared. X times x is always going to be x squared. Now the next ones we've got are on the outside. So I take the outside terms in each parentheses. So this gets multiplied by that. So 4x times a negative 2. Well, that's going to give me a negative 8. And I still have an x, so it's going to be negative 8x. Now, next one is to do the inside terms. So the inside terms are the ones right here on the inside. So positive 5 times 3 gives me 15. And again, I have an x, so it's got to be 15x, correct? Now, last ones, the 5 and the negative 2. Well, 5 times negative 2 gives me negative 10. So, got everything multiplied together. Do I have like terms? The answer is yes, I have it here and here. So I have 12x squared plus 7x minus 10. So I got exactly what I need, right? Good. Well, I know it looks 10, 16. Okay. Questions on that? Make sense? All right. So I'm going to give you this one, give you a couple of minutes to work on it. Okay, here we go. I've got a plus 9 multiplied by 2a squared minus 6a plus 5. So, a times a squared. Now remember, this is going to be a cubed. So I've got 1a here, 2a's over here. So it's a cubed. When I do this one here, a times negative 6a, that's going to be negative 6a squared. You got an a times an a. So now, here gets multiplied to this one. So what's a times 5? Well, that's going to be plus 5a. So far, so good. Why? What's missing? Oh, sorry. 2a cubed. Sorry. So now, down here, this times this. 9 times 2a plus 18a squared. 9 times over here, well, 6 times 9 is 54, right? So this would be negative 54a. Last one, 9 times 5. Well, that'll be plus 45. Last thing I've got to do is add like terms. Well, there's only one here, so it's going to be 2a cubed. So now, I've got this here and this over here. Now, I generally go through and put some type of mark, some way that I can identify which ones are going to be get added together. And I also make sure I include the signs. So this should be plus 12a squared, correct? So now I've got this 5a here and this minus 54a. So I put those together and I get negative 49a, correct? And 45 is all by itself, so it's plus 45. So that's what I end up with. Yeah. Take it slow and easy, and do the lines help you when you're connecting them? Because it kind of keeps that order, what I got to do, what's next, what's next. So, what I want you to do is I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, and I want you to do this one, but just do it in one way. Just multiply the three of them together. So does that make sense so far? Now I've got to add the like terms together, which are those two. So I'll end up with r squared minus 3r minus 18. Put these back in parentheses, and now I'm finally going to bring this one down and multiply it by it, r plus 2. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing all over again. So I can take r squared, multiply it by r. It doesn't matter how you do this as long as you multiply everything in one parenthesis by everything in the other parenthesis. So here I can do that and I end up with r cubed. I can take r squared times this over here plus 2r. I can take this, multiply by r, so I get minus 3r squared. Multiply here, so I get minus 6r. Then I still have got that 18 to deal with, so I can take 18 times this, negative 18r, and negative 18 times 2 for minus 36. As long as you put it into your head that you got to multiply everything in the first parenthesis by everything in the second parenthesis, you'll be okay. Now the last thing is I got to add like terms. Well, I got an r cubed here. I have, next thing is squared terms. Okay, so it looks as though I've lost an r squared here someplace. Oh, and I see exactly where I lost it, because there's going to be two of those. R squared times 2 should be 2r. That should be squared, right? So if you don't find your like terms, go looking for them. So I got it here, so that's going to be minus r squared. Now I've got an r here and an r there, so that's going to be minus 24r minus 36. So, did I get it right? And the thing is, you're going to have to write it out. You're going to have to show the work on how you got there. Two of you aren't going to do it exactly the same way. Show your work, write it out. That way when you compare it to somebody else's, you can look at it and say, hey, what did you do to get this? And then you can look at yours, what you should have done. But if you write it out, more than likely you're going to get it right every time. Two things you're going to mess up: signs and exponents. Be aware.